Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new video. I know it's been a while, I don't even know how to do this anymore, to be perfectly honest. And yes, my hair is wet because I just had a shower. But I decided to film a video today, so yeah, thank you for being here. So I was on TikTok the other day and I saw this girl, Brady. I forget her last name, so I'm sorry, but I'm going to try and link her TikTok account or TikTok video, whatever, down below. And she had this video about books that she will accept no criticism on. I thought that was a really fun idea, so yeah, she inspired me to film this video, and these are books that I will accept zero criticism on, meaning I wouldn't change anything about these books. I love them just the way they are. I'm sure there are more, but these are the ones that just came to mind when I was watching her video. You may not like them, and that's fine, but don't tell me. I don't need to know. Also, this light seems a bit off. I think this one is the best one. I'm not sure. I forget. Anyway, these are in no order, so books that are just perfect to me. The first one is Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. I'm a John Steinbeck groupie. I love John Steinbeck. I love his writing. I love how raw he is, and The Grapes of Wrath is such a ride. Emotionally, this book was just a roller coaster, and I was feeling so overwhelmed when I was reading it. Like literally I could feel something heavy like on my shoulders, just pressing because of everything that happens in this book. I'm not going to give you like mini reviews or anything like that. I'm just going to give you my very raw thoughts about each of these books. But The Grapes of Wrath is probably my favorite by Steinbeck. I haven't read all of his novels yet and novellas, but really such a powerful book. If you are interested in historical fiction and the Dust Bowl in the US in the 60s, then this book is for you, because it tells the story of a family that's going through that and having to travel so they can get away from the dust and the crisis. So obviously we're following a family, but we end up following a whole bunch of different characters. But this book is perfect. I wouldn't change anything about it. The next book is Agnes Grey by Bronte. You know those people that say that Charles Bronte was the best Bronte and they only know Jane Eyre. Okay, that's fine. My book just fell. Okay, that's fine. Like Jane Eyre, it's nice and all, but Anne Bronte, okay? She's so underrated. I have no idea why. She's a little bit like Emily. People underrate Emily and they do the same with Anne. Anne is scary because she talks about human nature in a very scary type of way, especially not from the perspective of children, but focusing on children. And that's what's scary about this book, is when she's talking about the children she takes care of and how mean they are and evil. She's focusing on their nature and upbringing, and it's scary. It scared me like when I read We Need to Talk About Kevin. If you know that book, you know it's scary. So I love her writing. This book is really short. I read this in one sitting, and I really think if you enjoy classics, like, you should read this one because it's fairly short and you won't be disappointed. It's always very upsetting when people talk about Jane Eyre all the time and then they haven't read the other books around it. They haven't read other books by Charles Bronte, or they haven't read Anne Bronte or Emily Bronte. And yes, Jane Eyre is a good book. Not my favorite, in all honesty. This one is perfect the way it is. I wouldn't change anything. Jane Eyre, I would change it. I would change a lot. But yeah, another one. It's one of my favorites. Next, we have one that's going to be controversial because every time people talk about this book on BookTube, they always have something to say. either because it's too long, or because it's really dense, or because it just drags, or because it's slow paced and because there's nothing to it, it's just a road trip. This book is amazing. I wouldn't change it, and that's On the Road by Jack Kerouac. I'm a Kerouac groupie as well. This book is perfect the way it is. And in all honesty, when I started reading it, I was at university. And I remember I started reading this book and I was like, okay, I can't get into this. It's just too much. And I put it down again. I don't DNF books, and I couldn't DNF this book in particular because it was for a class. But I put it down. I remember I focused on something else, and then I picked it up again, and it's just, I got really into it. And I just really love the whole idea of the road trip across America and getting to know so many different types of cultures within the same culture, and having to experience so many different types of realities at the same time. Culturally speaking, this book is very, very powerful, politically speaking as well. And I really think if you are interested in something like that, you should totally read this one. The whole concept of, the Beat Generation surrounding this book is just so inspiring. I really think that when you read this book, a little part of yourself is going to say something along the lines of, can we just pack the car and go? And it sounds good. It sounds really good. But this book is not, it's not romanticizing that type of lifestyle, because Sal Paradise comes across a lot of things that is very difficult for him to digest. And in a way, we all need that break. But yeah, when I read this, my first thought was, can I just go? Can I just take the bus and go, because I wasn't driving at the time. And yeah, if you are interested in road trips and getting away, you can get away by reading this book. You don't have to actually go away. And I think you're going to enjoy it. Next one is a book that I actually have to refilm the review that I have for this book, because the lightning is horrible and I was just all over the place. But yeah, I might delete that video and refilm it one day, and that's A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. This book, the same thing happened with this book. So this was not for class, but I was studying at the time, and I started reading it, I think, in January, February, I don't remember. I remember it was cold, and I had a lot of stuff going on in terms of school and work and all of that, and I couldn't get into it, so I put it down, picked it up again, and I read it, and I loved it. This book is about Alexander Rostov, a count during the Bolshevik Revolution, or right after the Bolshevik Revolution. If you are a fan of that time period of Russian history, I think you will love this book. In terms of historical fiction, this is like one of the best, if not the best book that I've ever read. And if you are one of those people, just, oh, I love the Bolshevik Revolution, then read this. Maybe you should read this. Because this was just so amazing and so real. The love this man has for his country, regardless of what's going on, regardless of what people are doing to it, and the people, the Russian people, it's just so beautiful. And I really think it should be sort of an inspiration for all of us. So yes, A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. Usually the criticism that I get about this book is that it's very slow paced. I mean, it is slow paced. The man is under house arrest. There's not a lot for him to do. So a lot of introspective moments happening here. A lot of like going back and talking about what happened before in the past and how we got to this point. Obviously that's not for everybody, but I don't accept criticism on this book. Zero criticism, because this is just perfect. Then we have one that it's not really controversial, but a lot of people prefer this one book. Like with Charlotte Bronte, everybody talks about Jane Eyre. With Jane Austen, everybody talks about Pride and Prejudice. I'm reading Pride and Prejudice, and quite honestly, I'm enjoying it, because I think I enjoyed all of the books I've read by Jane Austen, with the exception of Sense and Sensibility. That was not my favorite at all. But I don't really understand yet. Also, I'm still reading it, obviously, so I might have a change of heart, but I don't really understand why people love it so much. Maybe I'm biased because my favorite is still Persuasion. Persuasion is such a beautiful story about Anne Elliot and Captain Hensworth and Hensworth, and how they found each other after so many years of being apart and fell for each other again. This was one of Austen's last novels, if not, I think it was the last one, meaning that her writing had matured a lot to get to this point. So maybe, for example, when I read Emma, I enjoyed it a lot, but still persuasion, you know? So it's just very difficult to know if it's just for the story or it's also because her writing changed so much. But right now, I would say this is my favorite of her books. I haven't read all of them. This is such a beautiful story about vanity and pretension in society and how we view each other and how we view each other's relationships as they are our own, and how we meddle in other people's lives when it's not really none of our business. And again, we have the beautiful love story with Anne. So yes, really enjoyed this one. Another one that I always recommend when people talk about this author is A Man Called Ove. Ove, I'm not sure, I've heard both, by Frederick Backman. A lot of people talk about Beartown, which I haven't read, but this one just, I loved it. I cried my eyes out reading it, and then when I reached the end I cried again, and I cried on my way home, and then I got home. I was living with my mom at the time, and she asked me if everything was okay, and I started crying. This book was my favorite of that year, which I don't remember, 2018, 2019, I don't remember. It was just, this book is amazing. I love that this man, this grumpy old man that doesn't understand anything that's happening around him because he's way too stubborn, changes his ways for people he barely knows. And I love the back and forth, I love the flashbacks. His relationship with his wife is beautiful and heartbreaking and so wholesome at the same time. Loved it. A comfort read for sure. And finally, we have one that, again, not a lot of people know about this book, and I don't have a lot of opportunities to recommend it, unfortunately, and that's The Seventh Day by Yu Hua. This is a Chinese author. This is the only book that I own by a Chinese author. It's really difficult to get books by Chinese authors here in Portugal, so this is the only one that I own. I would love to read his other book, Brothers, because I've read a review online and it seems really interesting. I picked this up on the whim. I didn't know what this was, and I had a coupon, and I remember I just bought like a bunch of books, and I read the back and it sounded interesting, so why not? I didn't know anything about this author or the story itself, and I loved it. This is about a man who passes away, and we follow him for 7 days in the afterlife, going through a lot of events that had an impact on him and his life on earth, and in a way trying to get closure every time we go through an event. At the same time, we are also getting a lot of information about China at the time and the Cultural Revolution and how things worked there. Like, I learned a lot in terms of culture here and history. So the historical fiction that is sort of present in this book is just perfect. I love it. I just love it. So, also, if you are a fan of Haruki Murakami, because I am a fan of Haruki Murakami, you're gonna love this book because this gives you a lot of Murakami vibes, a lot. If someone were to cover his name and tell me this was written by Murakami, I would believe them and I wouldn't. At one point I would, and then I wouldn't, because Murakami focuses a lot on historical fiction, the historical fiction part, and the historical background is a lot about the Second World War and the War of Japan. And this is all about China. So that would sound very weird to me. But a lot of elements in this book, in a way, match Murakami's vibe, and I think it's a perfect book. So that's my video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and let me know down below if you have read any of these books, if you have books that you will accept zero criticism on, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!